Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this afternoon on Cool Your Heels with Lillian, our special guest is Caroline McBride, who started out in the restaurant industry. She's the director of public relations for the Serafina Restaurant. And she's written a book based on her experience called 4 Seasons at Angelino's. So good afternoon, Caroline. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lillian. I am great, and it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I have never had anybody from the restaurant business on before, so there's always a time for a first. So welcome first.
Well, thank you. It's an absolute honor. And I always say that we all eat in restaurants at one point or another, so it's always a fun conversation to have.
Absolutely. So please give our listeners a little bit of a background so they know that you only speak truth.
I only speak truth. Absolutely. I am a restaurant publicist. I have been for over 10 years. And there's a large restaurant group based out of New York that I've been with, but I also have consulted for other restaurant groups and hospitality chains and also in the beauty industry. So I'm a publicist by title. And what happened was I experienced so much, especially traveling around the world, opening new restaurants, and not just visiting exotic locales as a tourist, but actually as a worker, as somebody there on business who's doing a project with locals and natives and really getting to know the scenery of these places that I visited. And what I ultimately decided to do was wrap up some of these experiences and, of course, fictionalize it, because my novel is a romantic comedy fiction, but it's based on places that I've been to and some interesting things that I've seen during my journeys.
Which makes it better in some respects, because I find that if people really can't share their innermost experiences, then they're pretty dull as an author, and therefore their audience is not going to identify with them and want to go on this journey with them. And that's what you're presenting. You have a fictional character you want everybody to identify with. And then she goes on a series of journeys that may or may not work out. We all meet the resident bad guy, and every woman in this world has a resident bad guy somewhere in their hip pocket that they could probably give you details on. And then you introduce the rest. So out of all the restaurants that you've been to, what culture and food did you come across that really got to you?
Well, it's everything is unique. And I will say with the book, I named each chapter after a different city. And I only write about cities and places that I've been to. So restaurants that are covered in the book are actual functioning restaurants. When people read a chapter about a city they've been to or they want to go to, I hope that they will warm up to some of the places that I subtly recommend in the book. And as far as a place that's been exotic and really exciting for me, I would definitely say it's Tokyo, Japan. Like I said, everywhere is an adventure. Even I'm a native of Southern California, sometimes just going to different pockets of my own local community, or when I'm in New York City, walk a few blocks, every neighborhood has a different vibe. But Tokyo, to me, was the most homogeneous country that I went to, because usually if you go to Paris or London, for example, you see black and white and different ethnicities. But when I was in Japan, it felt like everything was Japanese. Everybody was Japanese. The signs were in Japanese. They are an island nation of 40 million people. So as an island nation of 40 million people, they don't need to have all their signs in English and 3 languages like here in California. It's English, Spanish, and then maybe a few other ones, depends on where you are. But Tokyo was it just felt so authentic and like I was transported into another world to really get into that culture. It wasn't like sometimes people will sort of conjugate with their fellow expatriates. I went to graduate school in the Netherlands, and sometimes, you'd have the French would hang out in little pockets and the Americans. And in Tokyo, you mix with the Japanese, and it's just a fascinating culture. I have a lot of respect for it.
I know. When my son went to Japan with the American Field Service, he was placed in the family where the gentleman was head of the Japanese mafia. And he had to learn Japanese very quickly. But whenever he had a big board meeting, as my son put it, he and the boy were asked to go to the local school and get lost for a couple hours. So had a fabulous time, and he learned a lot. And one of the things he did not do was go into the conclaves where the Americans hung out, or where the Australians hung out, or the French. He said because the people in Japan had a very low regard of foreigners to start out with. So he told me, why give them additional ammunition, Mom? They applauded the fact that I tried to speak their language. And one sculptor gentleman was so impressed with me that he wanted to take me on as an intern. He says, that doesn't happen all the time. And I said, and you let them down gently that you weren't going to have any extracurricular sexual activities until you got home? Yes, Mom. 16, he looked like he was 21, and he was over 6 feet. So they don't know how to really gauge age and height, I guess.
That's true. That's so interesting. See, I love hearing about his experience. And also, you have different age groups that are going to experience things differently. And what I cover in the book, too, is as a woman, how experiences traveling around the world can be, very, very different than how it is for men, especially when you go to areas like in the Middle East. And, this didn't make it in the book, but I've traveled alone to Lebanon twice, for example. And the first time, I don't want to date myself, but it was a long time ago, let's put it that way. It was while I was in graduate school. And I took a flight, connected through Germany, and landed in Beirut. And even in Germany, they're like, are you sure this is where you want to go? They were a little confused about what was going on. But I love seeing new places and exploring. And I feel that you learn so much, you gain so much knowledge by traveling. And not everybody can, unfortunately. So that's another purpose of the book, is to give people insight into these different cities and places that maybe they won't be able to travel to, especially during the pandemic. But I want readers to feel like they've been on a journey around the world when they finish that 304 pages. And it goes by very quickly. I've had several people tell me that they finished the book in 2 days, and it's very fast paced. It moves quickly.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It almost sounds like people are going to write their bucket list of places and foods they need to taste before they say a final goodbye to the world and travel on to their next journey, which I think is pretty good, because one of the things I have noticed during the pandemic, if you pay attention to some of the major corporations on the cable channel, is that they're beginning to really branch out into different places where their reporters or their representatives can still go even with wearing a mask, and yet they're introducing you to new places that one doesn't see on a regular basis on repeats, which I think is really good, because really it introduces kids to there's a whole wide world out there. Why are you keeping yourself down in Texas? It's not the only state in the union. Of course, they'll disagree with me on that one, but they think the sun rises in Texas. But I really feel
don't miss with Texas.
Yeah, I think it's a real. Texas has good food, but there's more to the world than just Texas, and you really do need to, if you can't get there physically, going there by radio or the internet or TV is the second best thing. And if you really concentrate, folks, the way you concentrate when you read a book, it's like you're already over there and in there. You're not in your living room looking in, but you're in that section or that culture. And I think that's the joy.
I absolutely agree. And like you said, you can see a new place on TV or through different forms of media, But to read about it, you can get very descriptive with the words and the smell. Like I have a chapter on Cannes in France, and when you land in the airport in Nice, there's just this freshness in the air that I try to convey. Again, that's why I only write about places that I've been to, because I know how they feel, how they smell, the sounds you hear, the food that you taste. And I think it's something very exciting about literature and books is that you can transport people into another place.
Which makes it good. So if you were going to give advice to somebody who wanted to somewhat follow in the footsteps of your heroine, how light a bag should they be packing?
Well, Charlotte McPherson in the book only travels with a carry-on suitcase. And I will say that's what I do in real life. Me personally, I also only travel carry-on. Very rarely do I check luggage, especially if I have a connecting flight, because I want to land and I want to run out of that airport as quickly as possible and get into the city or the country or wherever I am and start moving. And especially with work trips, you can't afford to have lost luggage. You have to wear, especially in the publicity world, women wearing high heels and trying to convey a certain look, a certain image. You don't want to be lost without your luggage. And that actually did happen to me before I learned this. I was going to Morocco for New Year's Eve, and my luggage was lost, and my friends were so kind. It was something strange happened in London Heathrow, and all these bags got lost, and I was hearing about it for a year. It happened to many people that holiday season. And when my friends were so kind, I was in my gym clothes because all my nice clothes were packed in my suitcase. And they said, don't worry, you can borrow our clothes. The only problem is I'm almost 5'11", size 9.5 shoe. So I could fit into some of the dresses. That was great, but they're all nice, size 6, size 7. So there I was with tennis shoes and no shoes. And it was a Muslim holiday. None of the stores were open. It was a disaster. So whenever you can travel on, carry on only. I highly recommend it.
And the food of thought is for this that I know my father was an international traveler. He would take 2 suits, 6 or 7 different shirts, 2 pairs of shoes, underwear, and that was it. Because he says when you wear a new shirt with a suit, it looks like it's a whole new suit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for women, I say the same thing. Take a few solid colors, 2 skirts. If you think about it, 2 skirts and 3 shirts. I mean, you already have several different outfits right there if you keep mixing and matching. And shoes are the difficult item. They take up so much space. So tennis shoes, get the collapsible kind where you can really stick them in there. And then choose maybe 1 black heel, 1 nude heel, and then a few pairs of sandals. That's it. Maybe some ballet flats. So you really need to be strategic about packing. That's a great point. That's very important.
I think so. And one other rule of thumb I noticed is that if you do have valuables, take them in your handbag. Don't count on any lock, on any case, whether it's hand or even if you have to. I know that for laptops, you still have to route them through. But see if you can argue your way into taking your laptop with you, because those bags are very easy to get into, even the ones that they show the Brillo paddling on top of. Obviously, they've never been through an airport. I was waiting one day, and I saw the truck come in with the suitcases, and I saw how they took them out and threw them into the baggage part of the plane.
Absolutely. Keep your valuables with you 100%. In fact, I travel with very few valuables. I have a sentimental necklace I'm not wearing right now, but that one is diamond, but I wear it, and I just don't bring very much jewelry when I'm traveling. It's not worth it. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to risk it, for sure. And also, of course, sentimental, you cannot replace. Absolutely. And then, of course, passport. It shocks me sometimes when my friends are like, oh, they throw their passport around. I'm like, you need that almost connected on your body, like wear it. Don't ever. And then once you check into the hotel, obviously I'm a firm believer of the hotel safes. So I put passports in there, and I don't run around a city or a place just carrying it with me. Once I reach my destination, I keep it there until I'm ready to leave again and go to the airport. So it's very important to be safe when you travel and be proactive and be alert. Don't get too relaxed. Any moment you could be a victim of a robbery. And that, of course, that's true anywhere. But when you're in a foreign country, do you want to lose your passport and have your return back to America or wherever you started from delayed? Not a good idea.
Same thing with money. Nowadays, they have credit cards, but in the old days, they used traveler's checks. And you better believe that you need to have those numbers for your traveler's checks somewhere on your person so that if they're stolen or you're on a beach and the sand eats it, you'll be able to release your money. Now it's a lot worse. Now you have credit cards that can be stolen.
Oh, absolutely. And credit card companies, that's another thing. You can call them before you leave and say, I just want to give you the heads up. I'm going to be in London for the weekend. So, because I've also had a few cases where my card's canceled. They don't know where I am. So it's another lesson I learned. I'm glad I can share that with everybody. But, just notify people where you're going, keep your belongings safe. But you can tell your credit card company, it doesn't even have to be international, but hey, I'm going to be in Chicago for a week. I will be using the card there, and they make a note of it, and they're very organized that way, so it's good.
Same thing with prescriptions, especially if you're traveling overseas or you're going to places where they ban certain substances, and you may be taking that substance because your doctor thinks you need it. So make sure you call off the company. I found out that if you call off the insurance company and tell them, the medical company, and tell them where you're going to be and everything, they'll be on the lookout. So if the person over at the airport gets a call, goes through your bag and says, this is contraband, I'm arresting you, you can take out your phone and says, here's my doctor, give them a call.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen a few too many of the episodes of Locked Up Abroad. I don't know if you've seen that. People get locked up in Turkey and different countries because of some misunderstanding. And yeah, it can be very scary. So that's one other lesson. Don't, as naive as that sounds, if somebody says, oh, hey, can you bring some of these vitamins back for my brother or whatever it is, don't take it. You might end up locked up abroad, and we definitely don't want that. So in the novel, oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying in the novel, the protagonist, you see a lot of that where she's running in and out of airports. And fortunately, there's not too many calamities as far as traveling is concerned. But, there's a spill that happens on a plane and she has to, when she gets off, she's supposed to go immediately to work, but now she's soaking wet and it's a long flight. So, that's another lesson. Have a little change of clothes again in your carry-on if you do choose to check luggage. In her case, in Charlotte's case, she's only traveling carry-on anyway, so at least she had access to her clothes and could change. So she's in and out of airports and kind of learns to navigate the lounges. You don't have to be a millionaire to enjoy the airport lounges if you're a frequent traveler. There's ways through your credit card. They might grant you access. It depends. Different credit cards have different plans, but it really helps when you're traveling for business just to have that lounge access and have some peace and quiet to catch up on work. So, while this is a romantic comedy and a lot of the book explores the relationships that Charlotte has with different men, she's very eager to settle down, but she's jumping headfirst into the wrong relationship, the wrong guy here, the wrong guy there. But she is diving into these relationships, hoping that perhaps this will be the one. In the meantime, the backdrop is her traveling around like a chicken with her head cut off because her work is so demanding and she needs to be in different time zones and she has teams in different areas that she's working with. So I tie it all together and include the work aspect along with the personal aspect to make something that's enjoyable to read, but also realistic and relatable to the reader. I thought my audience would be primarily women, and I am so pleasantly surprised that men have really gravitated to this book. I wasn't expecting that. And, I don't know if they're like closet case romantic comedy enthusiasts, but several men in my own personal circle have read it cover to cover and they're raving about it and they can relate to it too. So I'm really pleased that it doesn't just appeal to women Four Seasons at Angelino's appeals to men also. So that's been nice.
A lot more traveling than women. Women are relatively newcomers into the travel world. So what kind of, I know that a lot of men have, and my father has taught me how to eat abroad, but many people have not been taught that. So what kind of food items should people try when they're at their travel location, and maybe one or two others that you should avoid because they may get Montezuma's revenge or I mean, bad water is all over the world. It's just not in Mexico.
It's true. It's true. I only drink bottled water whenever I leave the US. And to be honest, in the US, I usually drink bottled water as well. So I think that it depends on where you're going. There is a chapter that addresses this in Mumbai, in India. People, at least Americans, are nervous about food poisoning. And that's because of the way the dairy is pasteurized there. So a family friend nearly died, according to him, nearly died after eating ice cream there. So I kind of worked that angle into the book. And when I was there, I did avoid dairy, but anything cooked, I mean, that's another rule. When you think about it, when things are cooked through, so if you're having like a cookie that's baked all the way through, you should be fine, unless there's something on top of it that's a sauce or something that is foreign to you. So I would say I generally advise sticking to bland. Now, more adventurous people want to go spicy and try everything, and that's fine. But India, for example, avoid dairy. Most places, it's a matter of just using, I believe, common sense. Like you said, don't drink water unless it's out of the bottle. Don't have dairy, as I'm mentioning. Like a soup, I would be a little hesitant to try soup in certain places, especially if it was a gazpacho, like a cold soup. I wouldn't want to go there. So I like things that are cooked very well through. And again, certain places you want to be careful about meat. I think it helps for vegetarians, but again, watch out for the dairy.
Okay, very good. I do know that the different type of vegetables and different type of food, this is going to be not Americanized for Americans to eat. And a lot of Americans are used to the Americanization of Chinese food, of Japanese food, of Italian food, of French food, which is fine, but you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. And you have to adjust not only your taste buds, but you have to have a little respect for your stomach as well. Because getting sick overseas is a big deal. It's not, like I said, you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. And the way the health system is set up in England or in France or even in India is vastly different from how it's set up in the States. Now, you're told that your Medicare doesn't work over there. Your secondary might, but check it out. There is international insurance that you can buy. Blue Cross Blue Shield has one. Check this stuff out before you go on a great adventure. If you're 21, 22, well, there's no hope for you. If you're more mature at 25 to 30, chances are you can look it up on the internet. You can find everything you want at Alice's Restaurant, which is on the internet as well. So what I'm saying is that if you're in doubt, find out before you get over there. If you have food allergies, find out what you eat. Because I don't know if they make a distinction between peanuts and something else coming out of the same manufacturer that they do here in the States. And you just can't willfully go over there. And if you're allergic to peanuts, you don't want to find out that there's little granules of almond in your cookie. That's because that's the way it's set up over there.
Right. And don't forget, if you're in Europe and you innocently order a piece of chocolate cake, they might put Nutella on it, for example. But unlike America, they're not always as descriptive on the menu to say, warning, this dish contains nuts. you'll find that in the US, the waiters and restaurants, I know from experience, go out of their way to make sure that customers know what the ingredients are so that there won't be any allergic reactions. Very common. And they don't make those same accommodations in Europe. And also keep in mind this idea of the doggy bag and, I only ate half of my food, I'll take the rest to go. That's a very American thing. And in certain circles in Europe, they really look down upon that. And as far as I know, in France, I learned from experience, they don't allow it because you could take the food away and then do something to it and get sick and blame the restaurant. So they're like, no, you're not taking the food out of the restaurant. I would also recommend, to your point, maybe bringing a little like a Pepto-Bismol, the tablets. You don't want to, it's hard to travel with liquids through airports. I realize that, but there's certain over-the-counter medicines. It's good to have a few, even just aspirin, Tylenol, because like you said, when you go to a new place and you get 3 or 4 days to experience a major European city, for example, or somewhere in Asia, Middle East, Latin America, wherever it may be, you don't want to waste your time sick in the hotel room. So any little over-the-counter medications that you need in America, you definitely should have a little stockpile to take with you when you travel. And I have something that might sound strange, but it's one of my tricks. I like chewable vitamin C. And I'm somebody, I want to knock on wood as I say this, but I rarely get sick with like cold or flu or sore throat, any of that stuff. But I think it could be because of my sort of addiction, so to speak, of vitamin C, just the chewables. I chew on a few. It's almost like candy, but it's really healthy for you. And vitamin C, I mean, obviously follow the directions and don't take more than recommended, but it's something that boosts your immune system. And when you're traveling, you're more sensitive. You're sleep deprived. There's jet lag. Maybe you're supposed to go to a play somewhere and you're so tired because it's 3 a.m. back where you came from that you don't want to be sleeping through it. These are special experiences that you want to take advantage of and enjoy and not miss out and say, wow, I went to Vienna, but I slept through the play or whatever it may be. So I like vitamin C. It gives me a little energy, and it's over the counter, any grocery store, you can get the chewable kind. Personally, for me, that's what works.
One other thing, and I'm sure your heroine knows this, but I think Americans don't. When you're going overseas to a country or a series of countries, or you're going on a tour, please look up the culture of how they address food, how their table manners are. I have fiancé in France, so I looked up table manners in French. Well, I have to unlearn everything I learned in America and relearn everything to do it the French way because I don't want to embarrass him or make somebody angry. There are certain things, for example, you have to wait until somebody says bon appetit before you eat. Wine is not guzzled, friends. It's sipped. Maybe sipped to find out, but you sip it, damn it. You don't drink it.
Right.
You have it in the left hand, the knife in the right hand. You do not eat bread as an appetizer. It is an accompaniment. And this is just the beginning. So if you don't want to be called foreigner, then look up the same thing if you go to Japan. My son said everybody was 5 feet, he was 6'2". He had to lower himself underneath the men and even lower for the women because the women are the ones who are in power. Surprise! So he did that. So I always kind of looked like a pretzel. But he said it gave him immense standing because the American tried to fit in with the customs and the culture of the city in which he was staying in. And if you don't want to be considered the arrogant or ugly American, I suggest very strongly that you look these things up.
I absolutely agree. And I do cover a little bit of that in the Tokyo chapter. In Japan, bowing is a sign of respect. So you don't want to just do a little head nod because it's the deeper the bow, the more respect. So anything, and of course, as a tall American woman, felt a little bit awkward bowing, to be honest. But then I realized what is going to be more awkward is to disrespect the gracious hosts and the people that I'm around. So even if I felt, even when I felt a bit uncomfortable, I just did it. And by the end, I've been to Japan twice for work. By the end, I have it down. It just let your inhibitions go and blend in with the culture as much as possible, and you will be appreciated and more accepted anywhere you travel to.
One final tip: it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. As my son would say, you eat it with a smile on your face. No matter what happens, that smile, white teeth smile, that you're enjoying every bite of it, even though you're dying inside. You get it down there. And he says
Yes.
they watch to see whether or not you're going to be a gracious guest or an African American. I tell my son this, and he said, I'll remember. And when he came back, he said, Mom, I'm so glad you told me about that. And I said, well, that's in the 1900s. That's when the Americans got that ugly reputation about being abroad, that we were arrogant and that we made trouble. And just read Henry James. But the thing of the matter is, when you go over there, you're representing your country. Whether you're a
Yes.
tourist or a business person, you're representing the United States. And if you are
Absolutely.
a proud American, please don't turn it into a coward American.
You're right. I agree. We should be respectful and gracious, just as we want people to respect our culture. So it should be a mutual admiration and respect. You're absolutely right.
So, Carolyn, please tell everybody where they can find you on the World Wide Web, where they can pick up your book, and any other juicy details you want to share.
My book is available worldwide on Amazon, in the U.S., in Target, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, major book retailers throughout the country. Also, on the West Coast, The Ripped Bodice, which is a bookstore dedicated to romance novels. And I'm happy to say it's in stores throughout the country. If you have any doubt, you can go to my website, which is CarolineMcBride.com. And I have a list of places where you can purchase it and direct links to purchase it that way if you don't want to go inside of a store. And I just hope that this book will bring people some laughter, some humor, and will put a smile on their face. There's some subliminal messages, sort of an anti-drug theme, a drink in moderation advisory, because when Charlotte drinks too much, bad things happen often. And also there's a subplot that involves an adoption story, which I hope will warm the hearts of readers. So it goes beyond the passion and romance of the book, but also becomes a deeper message and hopefully will touch people on a human level. And I'm so thrilled to talk to you, Lillian. It's been so nice. And I hope that your listeners and viewers will check out 4 Seasons at Angelino's.
Well, they should. Labor Day is a long weekend, and because of COVID, they really don't have any place to go. So I tell you right now, Amazon, if you're on Prime, and it seems like 2/3 of the known world is on Prime, go and order it. If not, I know Barnes and Noble is open, and as long as you keep 6 to 8 feet away from everybody and cough into the prop of your elbow, you should be just fine. Go and do that. My grandkids could spend their lives at Barnes and Noble and still have enough money left to buy every other book that they're not supposed to. So those are some suggestions. Go and find them. Now, to look and enjoy this interview all over again on Cool Your Heels with Lillian with special star Caroline McBride, you can hear this on youtube.com/PWR Network _PWR Talk or PWRTalkRadio.com. You can also hear the audio because we can separate the audio from the video, and you can hear it on Spreaker. You can also hear it on iTunes, iHeart, on Amazon Alexa. You can also hear it at the website, https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. And before you leave, John Selden had this to say in the mid-17th century: syllables govern the world. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this afternoon's interview with Caroline McBride. And remember, there's more to come. So have a a good weekend, wear those masks, and remember, stay healthy.